and today we were going to talk about ethics, intellectual property, and question of plagiarism. Emma is off today. She had other obligations, and fortunately we found a fantastic substitute with Claire Gozant from University of Nantes, and she will be able to talk about this matter. She knows pretty well, participating to the ethics committee of her university. Claire, please, you've got the floor. The screen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So everybody hear me well? Is okay? So this morning we will talk about research ethics. That's quite an important topic, obviously. The thing is that there are many interconnected aspects about ethics, and we will try to give an overview of the different aspects and to focus on different ones. Just as Benjamin said, we also discuss professional ethics and also ethics as it relates to data collection, notably. So I will share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint. Look. Here it is. Sorry. Oh, we have one more participant. So do you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So first of all, I think that what is important is to have a definition in mind, and research ethics as it is described in this slide, which I took, as you see, I put the source of my information, which I took from the Encyclopedia Social Science. It is the application of moral rules and professional codes of conduct to the collection, analysis, reporting, and publication of information about research subjects. And in particular, it covers the acceptance, the clear acceptance of people to participate to the study. There are also aspects related to privacy, confidentiality, and consent. So they, a lot of studies in social science involve the collection of data from people, and we have to have people that are okay with us collecting their data. So we have to tell them what is collected and what we are going to do with this data. That's a priori the first thing. There are also some related aspects. For instance, the fact that I'm doing my research, one more participant, the fact that I am doing my research with people that are okay with the data collection impacts the fact that I am going to use their data, that I am going to work maybe with other researchers in another context. It also impacts the fact that I may or may not reuse the data in another context, maybe for consultancy. And probably this would raise some ethical issues. So as you see, there are many different aspects related to research ethics, and it is also related to scientific integrity, intellectual property, and plagiarism. So these aspects are going to be discussed also by Benjamin. I have taken a summary of ethical principles. There are 4 slides dedicated to those principles. As you will see, it is not only related to participant consent and data collection, it is related to really a large view of researchers' behavior in the context of their activity. So I will not discuss everything because it's a little bit heavy, but I will focus on some of them that I think are particularly important. So the first thing that is expected from a researcher is honesty. This has to do with data. Obviously, we are not supposed to fabricate, falsify, or misrepresent data. So even if we collect some data and that once you have dealt with your data, you do not obtain expected results or you feel disappointed, well, it's a result, but it is not a problem, okay? So what you have to do is to, okay, another participant. What you have to do is to just respect the fact that your data are not necessarily in phase or do not comply completely with what you expected in your hypothesis or in your research design. Second aspect is that obviously when you're doing your research, you will try as much as possible to avoid bias. So this means, this has an impact because if you are careless, if you do not think to each aspect of your data collection, then there might be some flawed data that are incorporated in your sample. And so this is really important because if you are careless, well, you will not obtain what you want. So clearly, you see, research ethics has to do with methodology. Integrity has to do with the way you behave within the research community and with your colleagues, but also with the people. Let's say you're doing interview with people about, let's say, water management. If you say them, well, I will come back to you later with the result of my study, then do it. Just do it. So keep your promise and your agreement. So not only with the participants, but also with your colleagues. If you had an advice from one colleague and you say to her or to him, well, I will tell you what is going on with my research, then do again. So it is more general than strict research ethics, but obviously it has to do with your behavior. So we talked about carefulness. The recommendation of openness is important because it has to do with transparency of data. So there is no fear to have to share the data results and IDs. Yet it doesn't prevent you from protecting some important aspects, obviously. But it is always important to discuss the results because it will enrich your reflection and maybe your conclusion and your interpretation. So within your research team, just feel free to discuss your results. Another participant is coming. So intellectual property, we are going to discuss this with Benjamin, but clearly when you're using something that has been conceived or made by someone else, by a company, by another author, researcher, obviously you have to say, well, I did this using, let's say, the software that has been developed by this person or that person. As you know, in research, there are not only, I would say, commercial softwares to analyze data. There are also free softwares that has been developed by colleagues, like in data science or in informatics. And most of them are free to use. But it is not because it is free that we have the right to forget their names. So we have to say, well, I use this software or I use this algorithm that was made by this and that person. It is important because in some discipline, the intellectual production is not necessarily a production that is seen through articles. It is seen through algorithm. I just give this example because I work with people, engineers in informatics and engineers in data science, and their intellectual production is not necessarily in the form of articles or books. So if you use their production, just say it, just like you say, well, I am using the research framework that this or that author described in this article. Just the same. Confidentiality has to do with the fact that when you're using sensitive data from people that you collected during your research, people do not necessarily want their names to be delivered in the public space. So you see in the slide, it is mentioned military secret or patient records, but there are many other different things that people may not want to see delivered in the public space. So if you're conducting interviews, let's say, and that you said at the beginning of the interview, well, all the information that you will be giving to me will stay confidential, then you have to arrange so that it is in fact confidential. So it means that you will have to provide anonymity for the information that you gathered. So instead of saying, Narita told me this and that, you will say a person from this country working in such industry has told that this and that. So the granularity of what you're going to say about the person will depend on the fact that it is possible or not to identify the person. For instance, in some context, just indicating that it was a woman and she has that type of job in this industry, etc. If there's only one woman having this job in this enterprise, in this industry, in this country, then everybody knows that even without giving her name, we know that it is her. So this means that you have to withdraw a certain number of information. Let's say, don't say that it is a woman, just say that it is a person from this industry holding that type of job. So it will provide confidentiality if needed and if agreed upon with your participants. Responsible publication has to do with more professional conduct.
Yeah.
Clearly, it is not always very simple to say, well, I will publish only once, but the recommendation is really to make an article.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to know about the question of anonymity. If you change the name without necessarily describing, okay, this person, she's a woman, she works in this industry, etc. But can you change the name? Simply change the name. Is it enough, or do you need to take care about the fact that even if you change the name, if the position is so obviously related to a specific situation, everybody will know who it is about?
Well, I would say that it will depend on your research, because in some cases it's enough changing the names, because there are many other people that can have the same type of job in the same industry, etc. So it's okay. And in some cases, so it really has to do with the number of information that you provide. If there are crossings that that make possible the identification of the people, then you have to drop some information.
Mm-hmm.
So simply find the balance between only changing the name, sometimes it is okay, and changing or masking some other information.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, sometimes it is important to say that it is a woman or a man. Sometimes it is not important, and then you can drop this information. So it's really a matter of common sense, I would say. If the information is important in order to interpret the data, then you have to find a way to provide a view. And plus, there's another thing that is, let's say, the fact the gender is an important aspect of your research, and that it really provides some interesting conclusions. Well, at the individual level, you may not say this person is a male, this person is a female, but when giving an important, sorry, I was admitting somebody more in the room. When making your conclusions, you can say, well, women tend to have this type of conduct in this context, and male tend to have that type of conduct. So it's different, clearly. You use the gender, the gender criteria, but you do not provide precise information for each people participating to the study.
Okay.
So you can treat the thing at the different levels.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
No, but it's really nice to do it this way.
Yes, you can really ask questions and really comment anything you wish. It is important for us to feel that you're live, you know.
You can also use the chat if you have questions during my talk.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to share it and to, okay. I know. Sorry, there are two more people. Okay, luck is coming. So finally, I think we will be quite a lot of people in the room.
We are getting there, but still
Yeah,
people missing.
Because luck, there's connecting, but it's still connecting. I don't know whether.
Yeah, he might have a problem, a connection problem, because he was here at the beginning as well.
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, it's a pity.
Oh, there is a question. What kind of cases that we could call sensitive cases? Claire?
Let's say people, there are many possibilities. Sensitivity can be related to the type of data that you're delivering. Is it, let's say, strategic information about your corporation or your organization? It can be personal, let's say, obviously something related to your sexual orientation or things like that. Well, I guess when dealing with water and environment, this doesn't have a lot to do with the topic, but maybe, why not?
Well, we could imagine that in some interviews you would discuss the use of water, and sometimes maybe in a way that is not entirely legal. If you take water in a pipe, you know, where I mean, I've done studies in many places in slums where people have to use ways to get drinking water, ways that are not 100% legal, because they just make a hole in a pipe and take the water, or buy it. In Haiti, for example, they have to buy it to gangs who organize the business of illegal water. So this kind of behaviors obviously are not supposed to be advertised, you know, for people who do it. So this is sensitive. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. That's very perfect.
If I mind, I have one more example in the same line. Few years ago, I make research on North Vietnam. It was about dynamic landscape in the mountainous area, and there's a illegal network on trafficking forest wood, and this case, and more generally, when you are talking about the management of land, it could be very sensitive issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have another example.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Different example, but so that's why I think it's interesting to talk about it. But for example, for my master's degree, I did some sort of monography about an NGO experiment. In this monography, it was you know, just a master's degree thesis, so it was not really published. And I used the real names of the people. But of course, I did life stories. So in the work, I was telling the stories. Well, this person was born there from the parents working in this area, and then at a certain moment of her life happened something terrible. He wanted to change life, so he got involved in the NGOs, blah, blah, blah. So I gave some kind of intimate details about their lives. And then I realized that it was kind of intrusive. Even if they accepted the interview, it doesn't mean that they accepted and they were very happy to see in a publication, well, even if not for a big audience, but for only the university, they accepted to see their lives, their intimate, their own life experience written and shared with everybody, with their names, etc., etc. And actually, they did not react very well. They kind of, yeah, well, not because of that. They did not really like being an object of study, which I understand also. It's not necessarily pleasant to be an object of study, and you know, specifically in the NGO sector, where people would put their generosity at the forefront, to see the romantic storytelling about solidarity, generosity being objectified. Is objectivized? Well, trying to be objective about it, that's what we do in sociology. Try to deconstruct this mechanism that led to them to do what they did. It's not really pleasant, because in their own interpretation of their activities, they are just being generous and trying to save or to support people who are really in poor situations. So they didn't really appreciate the whole work. So what I did after that, I mean, basically stopping any kind of relationship with them, I published the work, but I changed the names. I felt better about it, but to be honest, it is exactly the case you mentioned, Claire, because I could not change the name of the NGO. Otherwise, it was totally a fictive work. And so anybody who wanted to know who is the director of this NGO, even if I call him Jean-Pierre when his name is Philippe, anybody can find who it is. But at least I felt better. There's a microphone. Oh, Fu, we are really happy to have you here, but can you, thank you. Anyway.
Sorry, I have another meeting, so I cannot start.
Turn off your phone, your mic, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so yes, changing the name, that was the minimum I could do. But after that, I felt a little bit guilty. But I don't know really how I could have done differently, because changing the name of I could have changed the name of the NGOs, but it would be, I thought also that it was a question of transparency. It's a pretty hard balance to find between you know, quality of the information, quality of the work, transparency, and also respect of private lives. And
yeah, you're perfectly right, and thank you for this example. Just going back to the different example that you gave and that Stefan gave as well. Actually, there is sensitivity at two levels. It is sensitive at the level of the content of the data, because it has to do with the robbery and illegal actions and tense situation. So the data itself is sensitive, and it is sensitive obviously at the personal or individual level. The people do not want to be identified, and it is the anonymity that we can guarantee them that is a condition to access the information they will be giving to us. So the first is related to the second, but it's two different cases. And also about the research that you have described, Benjamin, and the details in life stories. So as you said, you can change your name, the names of the people, but obviously it's not a problem to change the name of the NGO and say, well, I am, let's say it's NGE, and I call it this name, and you indicate, well, we are making a fictitious name because of confidentiality matter, and that's it.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
You can describe this NGO as an international network. It works in this area, let's say, and you provide true details about the organization, but you do not provide the name.
Yes.
Only if it doesn't allow to identify the NGO. If there are several NGO, let's say there are 3 NGO that are working approximately the same way, you just have to say, we will call the NGO X, and it does this and that.
Yes,
the fact
I agree.
And that you're doing your research honestly and you're providing other details, and you say, well, this information we cannot deliver, and this other information we cannot deliver, but we provide information that are interesting enough, it makes things okay.
I agree with you, but in this case, there were 2 elements that made me think differently. First of all, I did a work on the proper names of the NGOs. We had 2 NGOs, and their names was the analysis of the name was important in the work, because it was not by chance that these names had been chosen, you know.
Okay.
So it was important. I had I don't know, a few pages explaining how the name was powerful and why, how all the consequences of the choice of this name, etc. So it was pretty hard after that to say that, oh, the name is different. And second, there were small NGOs in such places, in such institutional and economic environment, that even changing the name, somebody really interested would have discovered where it was, because, you know, small NGOs located in the northern part of France, working in the Amazon region of Brazil, you can call it super help or whatever, you will find who it was. So it was, I was a bit trapped here. Anyway, let's move on.
And also, I would just another reflection about the case you're describing. You were indicating that maybe people would not feel very at ease when seeing some of their details in the stories. One possible way to lessen this trouble is to write your research and go back to the people and ask them whether they are okay. Are you okay if I write this and that? So there are some pros and cons, obviously, with this way of doing the research. The pros is that, well, you really have their consent if they say, well, it's not a problem, I'm okay with you telling this and that, because it is really what I think, and I feel protected by confidentiality, so I'm okay with you indicating this and that. Or they have the opportunity to say, well, I don't want this or that to be indicated. Or sometimes they have the opportunity to say, well, I want to modify this or that. And if they want to modify this or that, then there's a problem. Because probably if you have made notes or if you have recorded your interviews, you can check, discuss with the person. So there would be a negotiation. But in the two first case, I don't want this or that to be indicated, well, then just drop. I'm okay, so it's the best. In the two first cases, you have made what you had to do as a researcher. In the third cases, like renegotiating reality, then you will have to discuss again with the person and agree on one account of the reality. I put a lot of brackets for reality, but we know that it is constructed in a large part. So that's a way to do things and to respect the participants' trust as well, because people trusted you when you're making the observation or the interviews, etc. But obviously, there's no simple rule. What your case shows is that there is no simple rule when there are some tricky things. So I will try to go back to the slides. Respect for colleagues, etc., social responsibility. So clearly, but it's not always so simple. I would just want to focus on non-discrimination because this, well, in addition to my participation to the research ethics committee, I have been the responsible for men-women equality at the University of Nantes, and so I worked quite a lot about this. And this also has to do with, this also has impacts on how do we conduct research. For instance, in particular in medical science, certain treatment are tested only on men. And this has an impact, a clear impact, is that the dose, I don't know, the treatment is validated for men, but when afterwards you give it to women, it is not adapted. And this is something really, really problematic, obviously, because there might be some lies at stake. Same thing for still in the medical science, when you're looking at the manifestation of certain disease. If you study it only on women, and then you will try to find the same type of characteristics on men, and you will not. But the expression is not the same. So sometimes you will consider that this person is not sick, while this person is really sick, but simply because it is a man and not a woman, then you don't see things. So there are some barriers or that we have simply because we are trapped in our stereotypes, whether they are related to gender or to ethnicity or other factor. Just thinking that, and so as a researcher, we are not above social life. We are in social life. And we also have our own bias. So the non-discrimination criteria is really important in order to being more conscious of our own personal limitations when doing research. So this doesn't mean that we can be perfect, but the more reflexive we are in our research practice, probably the more responsible and inclusive we can be. And this has to do with the previous slide here. When you see openness, the openness criteria in conjunction with non-discrimination and self-reflexiveness can lead to better research procedures. And obviously, when you're doing your PhD, you can think, I am alone with my PhD, I have to be self-conscious, etc. And woo, that's a heavy burden. But you still have the research team, you have your PhD coordinator, etc. So it's important to discuss, because sometimes somebody else will say, well, have you thought about this? Oh, no, because I'm a woman and I thought it was just like this. Last aspect. So Stefan and as well as Benjamin said that there are some legal aspects that are important. Here we are thinking about the legal aspects in the country. So as a researcher, there are things you can do and there are other that you can't. For instance, in France, we can't use young children data just like this. So we have to ask, we have to make very clear, we have to obtain the consent of the parents, etc. So this will depend on the different countries, but it is important to be aware of the laws in your country to know that, well, that type of data I can gather, and that type of data I will need to make a procedure before I can go forward. In this presentation, there are also aspects related to animal care. Well, human subject protection, we will go more in depth later, so I will not discuss animal care. So I thought it is quite interesting. So obviously it is related to mostly medical sciences and investigation. But I think that there's one thing missing at this point. So trying not to harm animals when you're doing some research. Okay, and probably I think one thing that could also be added is that how my research is impacting the environment. Does it have some prolongation with the environment, and how, and is it desirable or not? I don't say that it is relevant for all research, but it might be. So we have to think. Let's say I'm I'm dealing with agriculture, and I'm trying to create new vegetables, then how do we prevent it from going outside and being everywhere in the countryside? So that's another type of impact. And well, I'm not an expert in this area, but obviously colleagues in biology would have to, and probably do, but would have to think about this. So as I said about laws, there are different legal frameworks, and you have to be aware at least of your own legal framework. There are some, in some places at different level, either the country or the area, some recommendations. So as I say, national agency can offer guidelines that you want to look at. And there are also scientific associations as well that are providing some guidelines. For instance, I put two of them as examples. In France, the National Center for Research has recommendations in terms of research ethics. The American Psychological Association also provides some guidelines for specifically the research in psychology, but it is possible that if you're in one area or another area, you can look at the scientific association recommendations. And there's also another one that I found. It's an agreement or several recommendations about research integrity. And it has to do also with the homework that Benjamin asked you to do for today. So if we want to because the different principles, there are many a little bit in different directions, but if we try to sum up things, we can see that there are some aspects that are more related to scientific integrity and professional conduct. And there are things that are directly related to data collection, do things. So it's important. Do you hear me well?
No, it's okay.
We just had a short problem, but it's okay. It was just like 5 seconds.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
There's a break.
Yeah.
Benjamin.
Yeah, we can have a break now. Maybe it could be the opportunity to.
J'étais déconnecté.
Yeah, mais tu m'entends? You hear me? Claire, do you hear me? Stéphane, do you hear me?
Yes.
Pas bien du tout. Allô?
Yes, Claire. Oui. Yeah. Maybe Claire, apparently your connection has a problem, but maybe we can have a short break now and you can take advantage of the break to relaunch your modem or whatever.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend. We hear you.
But not very good.
Not very well. Yeah, we don't see you though. Okay. Well, guys, we're gonna have a short break and we'll try to fix this connection issue. After the break, because Claire had almost finished. Oh yes, she's back. Hi Claire, you hear us?
C'est bon?
You hear us?
André?
We hear you. The quality of the connection is not very well.
Oui, moi
Not
j'entends.
very good. Okay.
Ok, c'est bon là, je pense, ça a l'air meilleur.
Elle est un peu congelée, mais bon.
Un peu, yeah, freeze.
Même complètement congelée. Okay. So I will try to reach Claire from with another device, but she was almost done with her part. Then I was about to talk briefly about intellectual property, but not that much, and also, most of all, show you few slides about plagiarism, and then, but it will be quick because I really want to hear you and to have the result of your homework so I have the information that Miss Chang Nguyen will present for Vietnam, then Paitun and Putipong will present for Thailand, and I don't have the information for Cambodia. So please, Cambodian people, just tell me who will present the rules and
Yeah,
it's you, Lai?
I present about
You will
Cambodia.
present. Okay. So short break. Claire apparently is back now. You're back with us, Claire? Yes, she's back.
You hear me?
After break, right?
You hear me?
Yeah, it's working now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so 5 minutes break for a coffee, then you finish your presentation. I do what I show what I want to show, and then they present the situation in their country. All right?
Okay.
Have a good coffee. Claire, please.
Okay. So because I had some connection troubles at the end of my presentation, I don't know whether we had time to see this slide.
Yeah, maybe this one, and then yeah.
Okay, so this one is okay. I don't have to discuss this.
Yes, please discuss this one, because that's where when it started the connection.
Yeah, okay. So what I was telling, because I think that I talked, but you already didn't have my my talk. So what I said is that the research, the ethical principle that I've presented are really large. But if we want to summarize, we can see that ethics in research pertains on one side to professional code of conduct, and it has to do with scientific integrity, and there are many recommendations that are already discussed, but that Benjamin is going to develop a little bit. And there's another aspect also that is related to data collection and use. So this has to do with the relationship between the researcher or the research team and the human participants to the research. So we also will discuss this aspect. And for instance, in Nantes, we have two aspects. In one person at the university is the research integrity correspondent, and aside to this, there is a research ethics committee that deals with all the topic related to data collection and protection of participants to studies. So this is two types of research ethics aspects. So here we have a slide. It is actually an introduction to what Benjamin is going to discuss with you. There are many aspects dealing with faulty data, poor data, etc. Plagiarism, that is something really important and that can obviously be a problem in the future of your career if you use this this avenue. And also what I would recommend, if you are facing some problems with this, like somebody wants to use your information or your ID, or you began some kind of collaboration with somebody, but then this person wants to publish on her own, etc., then it is possible that in your institution there's a scientific integrity correspondent. Just maybe check, and if it does not and if it is not the case, maybe it's a good idea to suggest this to the university. And it is also important to discuss this with the senior researcher, or to discuss this with the research group leader, because sometimes it is sufficient to make things more clear. Just so again, open discussion is something important, and that's the job of a research group leader, to deal with that type of aspects if there is not a scientific integrity correspondent. So now I will let Benjamin develop the aspects of plagiarism and intellectual property, because it is quite an important topic.
Thank you, Claire. But I need to be the leader again.
How do I do this?
You click on my name.
Okay.
Click plus. No. Oh, first of all, you need to stop sharing your screen. First of all, you need to stop sharing your screen.
So I stopped.
Oh, okay. So now, no. Then you go to in my name plus. And
I already did this, so I think.
Oh, okay. So I am now.
Yeah, you are definitely. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Claire. Just I will be quick, because I really I think it's much more important you to present. But I wanted to show you two presentations. Actually, it's something I found in a great website for the ones who already participated to some training sessions. I've talked about it already. It's called Research for Life, and there are a lot of resources, including this presentation here. Here we have two presentations. One is particularly about intellectual property. This is this one, and copyright. So I won't go very deep into this. There is the definition and background, copyright and Creative Commons, author rights and open access. These are interesting things, but since we are in a training session related to writing, writing your articles and how do you write the results and you present your results of science, it's a bit out of the topic of the training session. So anyway, I will send you the presentations. It's pretty well done, and you can see it's recent as well. References are from 2018. You have definition, Intellectual property refers to creation of the mind, such as inventions, literacy and artistic works, design and symbols, names and images used in commerce. And yet two categories, industrial property and copyright. And in our case, generally, copyright is the most important thing since we are writing things. But for people working in more hard science area, you could be, your work could lead to patents. But it's a totally different area. So it's not really relevant to talk about it. So anyway, I will present you that. I will send you this file. But what I think is more interesting in our case is the part B of what they have done about plagiarism. I won't present everything, but simply wanted to present you what we can do without even noticing it, all right? So the types of plagiarism, well, stealing is quite obvious. they say it is exactly what it sounds like. If you take a sentence or even a unique turn of phrase and pass it off as your own, this is stealing. Patchworking, using words and phrases from a source text that may or may not be acknowledged, and patching them together into new sentences. So you take a piece of a sentence from a book and you just stick it to, patch it to one of your sentence. It's also plagiarism. Insufficient paraphrasing, taking an author's words and changing them slightly in a subtle way so that you think it won't be seen, but of course it is, without referring to the original author. It is plagiarism. So say it entirely in your own words, otherwise put the author's text in quotes and reference the source. Misquoting, when you quote another author in your own work, always be sure to quote exactly what was said. Direct quotes are when you use an author's exact words. Indirect quotes are when you report the spoken or written words of an author, but not his or her exact words. Both must be cited. Okay. Duplicating publications. You cannot recycle your own paper for use in another assignment without explicit permission from the instructor. So it's a bit different, but it's still plagiarism. You can, it's plagiarism of your own work. If you cite your previous work, remember to cite yourself. This is self-plagiarism, which is quite kind of funny. You have also what they called here scenarios, where you combine the findings of, for example, 8 sources into one paragraph. You don't have to cite them because you created the compilation. No, it's not true. You have to cite them. And anyway, in a scientific way, it's better to explain what brought the 8 different sources of science and how you use them to build up a new concept or idea, more than just go too quickly using 8 sources into one paragraph. But anyway, if you do that, you have to cite them. I submitted the same paper to more than one class. It's okay that I copied my own work without citing it because it's still my idea. So this is what I said earlier. It is self-plagiarism. I copied someone else's work, but I didn't use quotation marks because I changed a few words. So that's just example of things that are plagiarism. I removed some data points to make my results look better. Wrong. You can't do that. You have to be honest about your data. You can't remove data points. I didn't collect enough data for my experiment, so I used a computer program to generate data points. Wrong, you can't generate data from nothing. My advisor used my data without giving me credit. This is bad as well. You have the right to reclaim, to be part of the authors if your advisor used your data. I know it happens very often, but still. I quoted something but changed one word to strengthen it. Yeah, it's supposed for my argument. So it's the same idea. Just something, well, this is what I wanted to show you most of all, because this is something we all do, we have done. Common mistakes, that's what I was saying, getting into plagiarism without even noticing it. Cut and paste from electronic internet sources without using quotes and properly citing the source. It's so easy. We have access to so much information. You just cut and paste. It's not even that you're lazy, but sometimes it's something we do without even noticing it. You know, you take a piece of words, you paste it, and then you work on your phrase, and that's it. So you should cite your source. Download audio, visual, or art without proper permissions. You have copyright issues here. Cite statistic facts without the source unless they are common knowledge. This is quite obvious for anybody doing research, even at master's degree, that when you have statistic or facts, you have to cite the source under a table or a diagram. So it's quite obvious, but still sometimes we can read papers where the source are not cited. If you use 4 lines when you cite, you should, well, this is a little bit tricky, but you should have a margin between your quotation and a difference of margin between your quotation. It depends of the standards. Even if you don't use words verbatim, you must cite it if you use the author's ideas. True, especially in social sciences, very often we refer to ideas without quoting, without brackets, but we put the reference of the book or the article. If you reference a scientific concept that is not commonly known, cite the source, okay. You do not need to cite if you are using universally understood concept or common knowledge. So you can see here that it is quite relative. What is universally understood concept or common knowledge? There is no certainty about that. And the advice they give, which I think is interesting, is if you have a doubt, cite. You know, if you cite too much, it won't be a problem. If you don't cite enough, it will be a problem. So in case of doubt, just cite. It's fine. So I'll stop here. This is something I wanted to tell you because we are working on how to write papers. So don't underestimate the importance of these questions, because if you are wrong about it, if you you can get into trouble. You can get into serious troubles, which could really maybe not ruin your career, but for some people it has happened. Just show you that one quite funny slide. They give after that examples of plagiarism. Because there is an investigation for plagiarism. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. This guy, the president of Jacksonville State University, William Meehan's dissertation, okay? That's his dissertation. Well, okay, it's very small, but portions highlighted in yellow are copied verbatim from another guy's dissertation, a Carl Boning's dissertation. So you can see everything that is in yellow is copied directly from another guy's dissertation. So maybe it took a while for people to realize that, but we can imagine that Mr. William Mehans were in trouble when this has been discovered. So be careful, of course. If you do it in a more subtle way, okay? But I'm telling you, not doing it, because it is a real problem of conduct. Okay, so unless you have questions, and I think if you have questions about these issues, you will be able to find your answers in these presentations of Research for Life. And in a general way, I really encourage you to go on this website, Research for Life. You will find many useful informations. They have all these slides here. I can send it to you also. How to read a scientific paper, how to write and publish a scientific paper, intellectual property sections, that's what I said, strategies for effective writing. All this is for free and accessible. So really don't hesitate. I would not recommend it if it were not of good quality, because we found, when I was researching resources about how to write scientific papers, I found several websites advertising, we help you to write your scientific paper. So I went there to have a look at it. And actually, it's a real business. I didn't know that, but you have several websites and companies that propose you basically. I did not go very far, because I very quickly they ask you to pay. But basically, you can give money to a company to, I suppose they can really help you writing your paper. I hope they don't write it entirely, but actually they propose to you services to support you in the writing of your research paper. I would not trust this kind of website. You have no idea about who is behind the screen, and you have no idea of their skills in your area and in their legitimacy with this kind of with scientific writing. So it's much better to use solidarity and competences of your colleagues in your university or in your own network than trusting some unknown and absolutely anonymous people, even if you think it's easier because you just give your credit card number. Be careful, you will be your money will be stolen, and the result won't be satisfying. I'm 100% sure of that. It would be too easy. So considering all the elements Claire has been presented and the few things I've talked about now, I would be really glad to hear, let's say, who will be starting presenting. Apparently Lai was very keen of talking. So because I'm a sadistic person, I will start with Paitun and Putipong maybe. Okay, if you don't mind, Lai, you will wait a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
So Paitun and Putipong, if you wish, do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, could you be allowed?
Okay. We can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me?
We hear you, but very low.
Hello.
Yes.
Is it better?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Do you need to have the power to put your presentation, to share your screen or not?
Yeah, I want to share my screen. Yes. We share.
Yeah, I need to share screen.
Lai, you will present just a bit later.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, is it better?
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
Okay.
So are you able to share your screen?
Yeah. I want to share my screen.
Okay. I thought you needed to be the animator to.
Hi. Maybe while the screen is being shared, I would like to add a little bit more words to what was said.
Yeah.
Just to make clear that, as you see, the ethical dimension has a clear impact on the methodology, so on the way you're doing research, but also on the way you're going to talk about your research. So when you're writing your article, well, let's say there's no particular problem of ethical aspects, so then you will not make a mention of this. But if you encountered specific ethical issues, or if you made specific things such as anonymizing or changing names or double checking with the participants, etc., that kind of thing, you can indicate it in the method section of your article. Okay, so when you have specific behavior, methodological decisions, then you have to describe it in the method section. Another way of doing things, again, it depends on the field of study, it depends on the discipline, but in psychology, for instance, a researcher cannot submit their article to journals unless they have a stamp saying, well, this research has been favorably evaluated by the Research Ethics Committee. So that's why we have a Research Ethics Committee at the University of North and in different universities. It helps to have the stamp, and then the colleagues can put their research and their articles to journals saying, well, we make a note, this has received the agreement of the Research Ethics Committee. Mm-hmm. So depending on your discipline, you may need this or not. And depending on your methodology and the research ethical issues that you have, you may mention it and describe how you deal with this in your paper. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
Okay. It's very important for this training session. Python, can you start your presentation?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
For a sec.
So now you are the host of the...
Yes. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
You have, okay, let's say 7 minutes.
Oh, I'll try my best. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would like to present the rules and practice related to intellectual property in science, ethics, and plagiarism in Thailand. So I will start with the first topic about the intellectual property. In Thailand, we have the Department of Intellectual Properties of Thailand was established in 1992 under the supervision of the Ministry of Commerce. Their main strategy is to protect the intellectual property right and enhance its competitiveness and sustainable trade. And also in the 12th National Economic and Social Development Plan, we started from 2017 to 2021. emphasize the importance of intellectual property rights strategy, as they want to promote registration, utilization, and protection of intellectual property rights in order to encourage research, innovation, creativity, and local insight that benefit commercial application to help guide the economies. But how about the intellectual property in the academic in Thailand? The most Thai university defined intellectual property policy is the general policy on intellectual properties, such as the interpretation and identification of ownerships, the intellectual property protections, on the establishment of an intellectual property committee, and followed by the policy on income sharing, copyright policies, and patent policy in higher education institutes. However, although many higher education institutes have clear policies on intellectual property, but there are still a handful of higher education institutes facing insufficient policy issues related to the intellectual property and still lack of direction in setting the goal of the institute. This may result in problem in the management of the institution intellectual properties. There are some challenges for the intellectual property in the academic sector. Is related to the conflict between the institutions and creators. The interpretation of ownership of intellectual property rights in the teaching material, research paper, developments, new course, or revise existing course within the institutions, and also the compensation for the intellectual property of the creators. And the last one is the provision of service and the use of the intellectual property in information service database, both internal and external access. Nowadays, most universities in Thailand adhere to a policy to utilize the benefits gains to the research and discoveries that have been registered and intellectual property, patent, and copyrights. It also assists faculty members, university staff, and also students in patent and copyright registration that will contribute to their recognition in nationality and internationalities. Next section will be Mr. Putipong.
Okay, here we know that normally ethics research can be like with animal subjects, but I will show the context of social science, which is ethic on human subjects. There is a general approach in Thailand that's okay, we have to see that our data obtained will be related to humans or not. If it's not, we need to consider more whether we analyze or report something related to human to personal information or not. If not, we can do non-human subject. But if it is, we have to conform with the human subject ethical protocol. So next page. There are 3 levels, which is first one is very mild one, exempt, expedite, and also full boards. There are a type of the risk which more very qualitative in terms of defining what is a risk less than normal life or higher than normal life. They have something like participants that are at risk, like prisoners, disability person, vulnerable subjects like that, and also the timeline of the processing time of this one. So the criteria here is defined from natural science, from medical science, which is quite not really applicable for social science like us. So next page. For the case of the university, in Thailand University, there are 2 approaches. First one is the professor. So professor have to commit to the ethical proposal, propose the ethical proposal to the board, and then after it is approved, they have to inform respondent about the consent form and then conduct the collection. For students, they have to approach. First one, they can conform with the ethical board, and another one, they can consult to their advisor and just informing or something like that. No need required for this one. So I have direct experience to submit an ethical proposal to the board, and I found some challenge on the next page. Next page.
Sorry, I have someone. So.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, here is a challenge for social science researcher. I see that there are application and some kind of topics are not making sense for social science like us. First one, I found that they seem to be designed for laboratory setting. For example, they asked me about the place to conduct research, multiple or single. So my question is, what if I conduct an interview in a coffee shop? Do I need to acquire the permission from the coffee shop or not? This is very not usual for social science. Second one, it seems to be adapt for medical science, such as they say that research process has to identify your research process, method, anything, time, interview, blah, 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 which very restrict to how many times the verification will taken, which I did not do that. Second thing I found is like characteristic of my participant. I have to qualify my participant, whether they are healthy or not, whether who they are, okay. หน้าต่อไปครับ what I found from the comments, from the feedback from the committee is that first, I need to specify more about my time using interview, but my interview is long interview, which could take 1 or 2 hours or maybe many days. So I cannot define exactly what the timeline. Second one, I need to specify who are the driver. I am conducting carpooling. So I need to specify who are the driver, their career. This is to justify whether they are healthy volunteer or not, which I don't know. I have no idea. So at the end, I stopped this process and conducting the second approach, advising my advisor. That's right. หน้าต่อไปครับ
Okay. Next will be the last topic about the plagiarisms. There's a culture of plagiarism in Thailand. Copying search results from the internet without any analysis has been accepted practice among some students as long as they can pass the exam or obtain a degree with these results. The widespread acceptance of plagiarism is a serious matter as it could create a generation with a lack of creativity and the ability to think analytically. So many universities are taking the matter serious, and the affair might damage their academic image. And it needs to ensure the young researcher or the student to realize the plagiarism is an intellectual thief. This is the case about the plagiarism in Thailand that I found. You can go through it. It's have 2012 and 2015 for both master thesis and PhD dissertations. Okay, in Chulalongkorn University and Silpakorn. For the next slide, I found some research by Confidentiality University. They have do a survey as for the undergraduate students about the common factor that they do the plagiarisms and can be identified that the first one is the student has poor time management and finally submit a plagiarized work. The second is the student lack of the knowledge is general awareness, which is not educated by the teacher or instructor for promoting the roles and of unethical works. And the third is this seems to be a normal issue for many institutions because students disregarding for low punishments. And the third one, in the classroom, students indicate that they have no feedback on citing or plagiarism from teacher, thus they could not acknowledge their misuse of outside source. Next is the lack of plagiarism. This issue was confirmed that from almost students since they could not realize the importance of plagiarism. And the last factor is the student may know how to use outside source appropriately and arrange their plan for each subject. But there are some personal issues such as their filters, laziness, fear failure, and gain score. So many universities in Thailand, such as Thammasat and Chiang Mai University, we allow the PhD dissertations to have the plagiarism not more than 20%. However, many institutions therefore attempt to reduce the increasing plagiarism among students and preventing the opportunity of academic misconduct in their institute with various actions by providing the training on plagiarism and ethical research, or launching the policy to monitor the ethics in writing, such as several institutions' policy and practice in preventing and reducing plagiarism are in student guidebooks. And also they adopt computer programs such as Turnitin and articulation, which is the program developed by Chulalongkorn University in 2013 to detect plagiarism in this their thesis and dissertation submitted by their master and PhD students. And the last practice is the student must check their own writing with the program before they submit to their advisors. Okay, this is the end of my presentations. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really interesting, and I think and I hope, but I'm sure it was helpful for other participants. Claire had probably many comments. Claire?
Yes, so just say, wow, that's really a great presentation. Thank you, and I think it's quite comforting to see that there are already a lot of things that are in place in the universities, and you see. For instance, in Nantes, the ethical board has been settled only 2 years ago. So it's not that. So I think we were particularly late, but because there are many other universities or research institutions that already have that type of board. But clearly, I think that there's already a research ethics equipment in Thailand, and you have pointed things that clearly are interesting. For instance, the fact that there are differences in social science research and medical research, but sometimes when you think it's the same in Nantes, we have the same things. Most of the criteria are criteria derived from the medical science protocols, but sometimes when you make a small effort, you can see that you can have crossings with social science. So simply a matter of thinking, and sometimes there are some things that are not just relevant, as you said, and then you say, well, not applicable to my case. That's it. But
yes,
well.
yes. I have just two questions. Actually, one comment and one question. One comment is about following what you just said about the question of the place you're doing your interviews. If you need the authorization of your coffee shop, well. I suppose it depends. You probably need it, but I don't see it as a very serious issue. And the healthy driver, I thought it was quite interesting. I'm wondering, like you, what it means. So if you investigate and find out what it means to have a healthy driver, I mean, I suppose that it means that you need to have a driver who is healthy enough to drive, but to what extent it has consequences on your research and the quality of the data. Maybe I would say it's more about your personal safety than anything else. And the question is about the 20% of plagiarism accepted. I'm quite surprised about that. I thought that maybe it was tolerance, maybe, but like I doubt that Thammasat accepts officially that 20% of the production or 20% of a dissertation can be based on plagiarism. So if you can just explain that quickly to us, that would be very interesting. And also I realize that it is quite late, so please stay with us like maybe 15 more minutes. it's not usual, but it's important. Thank you. Paitun, can you just develop a little bit more about this 20%?
I'm not sure is the information that I informed that from the PhD office, because when we want to submit our proposals or the final dissertations, we must use the Turnitin program to cross-check our paper first. If it's not more than 20%, that I informed that from the PhD office that I can submit it to the committee and defend my dissertations.
Okay, so maybe
I will find out what is how come with this number. The same as Chiang Mai University, they use the same numbers.
But I suppose it's because maybe the tool you're using is very sensitive, and so maybe if it's based on a series of words that are similar to another word, maybe okay, I understand better. So it's maybe to compensate some kind of bias from the Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Paitun and Putipong. So Lai, it is your turn to present. We will be glad to hear you about Cambodia.
Yeah, so can I share screen now? So,
yes, let me know if you can. Otherwise, yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah. Yes, you can now.
yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I focus on the right author in the Kingdom of Cambodia. In fact, I don't have the document that talk about the plagiarism in the university yet. Yeah, here is the right author in the Kingdom of Cambodia that this law is created by the Ministry of Culture. Yeah, here the right of author in the Article 18. The author of work shall enjoy an exclusive right on that work, which shall be enforceable against all persons. Yes. The right include moral right and economic rights. Yeah. The moral right of the author is perpetual, inalienable, unrestrainable, and imprescriptible. It shall be transmitted multi-culture to the heir of the author or to the third party in accordance with the provisions stipulated in the will. In case of having no heirs, the right will be subjected to the administration and governance of the state represented by the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art. Yeah, the law is adopted, written by the Ministry of Culture and Fine Art. Yeah, Article 20, the moral right of the author contain the following three particular topics, particular points. A, the author has the exclusive right to decide the manner and the timing of the disclosure of his or her work, as well as the principle to govern this disclosure. For the purpose of relation with the public, the author enjoys his or her rights in respect of his or her name, title, and works. The author has the right to oppose all form of distortion, mutilation, or modification of the content of his or her work, which would be prejudicial to his or her honor or reputation. And economic right is the exclusive right of the author to exploit his or her own work through the authorization of reproduction, communication to the public, and creation of derivative work. And the limitation are also rights. The importance of copy of work by any natural person for his or her personal use can be done without the consent of the author of work, of that work, or the right holder.
Lai,
Yeah.
Just a question. Okay, this is interesting, but it is really related to copyright, and I think
Yeah.
it is legislation. Well, it must be more or less equivalent in all countries. But let
Yeah.
me just be clear. Actually, what I would like is to know that in your institution, how do you manage these questions of ethics and intellectual property? It is interesting to know more about copyright, but it's not the topic here. We will be glad to share your presentation with other participants. But what is more interesting actually for us is really your experience and how it works in real life concretely when you start a research, for example. Do you have to present your project to an ethics committee or board?
Yeah. So, but in our university, in fact, this copyright is under writing, and we haven't implemented it yet.
Oh, okay. So it's in project. So no, but that's good to know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but when you start a research in ITC, do you have an ethics?
No, I am in not ITC. I am in Royal University of Law.
Rule. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rule is law and economics. Huh? Royal University of Law and Economics.
Yeah.
So in this subject, I mean, talking about law, I suppose ethics is important, right?
I think maybe the lecturer, Dr. Kong, maybe has some experience to share the copyright in ITC. Yeah.
Kong, do you have experience with that?
In your ITC? Yeah.
What we implementing at ITC, we focus on the public. In that we have the committee. Plagiarism is just until now we have no any for the software to use officially at ITC. But the committee try to get to access if they want to knowledge copy from other or not. It's they use the software which is online. I forgot the name actually, but they have, because it is under Research and Innovation Center. They have their own scientific committee before they accept one to know. But sorry, I forgot the
So well, the quality is pretty bad, but what I understood is that when you submit a project, you have your scientific committee, and also you use also a software, an online software, to check about plagiarism. Is that right?
You mean the project?
Yeah. What?
The research project or the paper?
The paper.
For the proposal, actually, for the paper, yeah, they have the scientific committee created under the Research and Innovation Center. Yeah, but there is no any official software to check.
Oh, there's not an official software to check.
But what they use is online, but I forgot that.
The name.
Yeah, they use the online program to check, but I don't know what is that about. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they don't have any to check on the plagiarism. Yeah, because that is one of the criteria, and the it is under Research and Innovation Center. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I can give the answer later on this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kong, the quality is too bad. People can't hear you. So thank you anyway. you for
Okay, okay, thank you.
Benjamin?
Yes, Stefan.
No, I just want, regarding rule presentation, I just want again to underline that rule is much more, so far, it's much more a teaching institution.
Yeah.
And the rector is trying to building a research center, but it's not done already. It's why maybe it was a little difficult for the trainee to expose, to share
I know.
the experience at rule.
No, I know, Stefan, but the idea was to present the national framework. But anyway, it's fine. And I'm sorry because the time is running, and Claire will have to leave in 5 minutes. So I would really like to thank Lai and Kong, and to ask Chan to present for Vietnam
Yes. Okay.
as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to say before, I will probably leave during your presentation. I feel really sorry.
No, not sorry.
So I just want
That's
to
fine.
interrupt just to say this, and I want to thank all the participants and my colleagues for this session that I think was quite interactive and interesting. So that's it.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
So Chan,
Bye-bye,
Thank you very much,
Thank
Claire.
you.
Bye.
so Chan,
Yeah,
your
thank
turn.
you. Bye.
Okay. Good morning, our professor, our trainer, and good afternoon, our trainees, my classmates. And I'm happy to be a representative of the Vietnamese group, and I would like to present to you our presentation. I'd like to share my screen.
Can you share it, or do you need to be the boss?
I'm doing that.
Okay.
Can you see? Can you see that?
Yep, it's coming. Yes,
Okay.
you can see it.
Nice. Okay.
Please, all of you, send me your presentations. It's very important for the archives and interesting, actually, and important for the archives of WANASI. Your PowerPoint files,
Okay.
or in PDF if you prefer. Don't care.
Okay. So I'd like to present the intellectual property rights in Vietnam. This is over lunchtime, and it's already the time I used to take a nap in the lunchtime. So if you by difficulty in listening or by something wrong from my side, please correct me, my Vietnamese friends.
Okay.
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 Yes.
Yes, present it like, yes, perfect.
Okay, yes. Firstly, I would like to briefly tell you about the history of intellectual property rights in Vietnam. This right starting from 2005 in Vietnam, and Vietnam National Assembly passed the law on intellectual property rights. And this law was later amended and supplemented in 2009. It's very new to us. And the copyright protection is regulation in law on intellectual property in Vietnam. And the law on that issue, number 50, 2005, and creates 11, and amended some article in accordance with that law. The law comes with the main following contents. Firstly, based on the emergence and establishment of intellectual property rights, the type of works covered by copyright. The first one is author and the copyright holders. that have works covered by copyright. The fourth one is content of limitation on in terms of protection of copyright and related rights. The act of infringing upon copyright, infringement of copyright and relevant rights. This is the content of the law on intellectual property in Vietnam. And the next one, the administrative management of intellectual property in our country. The IP system divided into 3 areas. The first one is copyright and related rights, administered by Copyright Office of Vietnam. The second part is industrial property rights, administered by National Office of Intellectual Property. And the last part is the rights to plant varieties, administered by Plant Variety Protection Office. So we have that 3 areas. And IP rights enforcement. Now, in our country, companies seeking to enforce this law, and they have 3 options. First one is administrative action. The second one is civil court action. And the last one is criminal prosecution. And as part of European Union Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, EVFTA, which is expected to come into effect already done in Vietnam now. And we already use that agreement for our export. Some product, and the comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership is publishing Vietnam to meet high standard of IP rights. And in order to reach the requirement of EVFTA, we have long time to prepare for that, and now we are involved in that process deeper. In August 2019, the Vietnamese government has also issued the decision number 1068, or we can call that National IP Strategy on Intellectual Property Strategy, with the vision to 2030. About ethics and plagiarism in social science research. Actually, the plagiarism is primarily a violation of integrity standards, but in Vietnam it's quite popular in scientific research, that especially in student dissertation work. Actually, recently in Vietnam, we have no specific regulation on plagiarism in the fields of science and technology. And the latest decrees on sanctioning of administrative violation of copyright and related rights. We already issued the decree number 131/2013 from our government. And now some universities actively regulate the similarity of 20% or more as plagiarism. I think this similar to Thailand. And we also use Turnitin or other software to count the percentage of work similar, and we call that plagiarism. And 20% also is our number to consider.
Okay.
The second one is plagiarism in science and technology research in general, and in social research sciences. That is an issue need to be paid more attention in our country. It's not only violate the standard of integrity, but also damage a lot of money of the state. Okay, so here, that's some slides. I'll talk about the copyright. So shall I ignore that? So I will send you later.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that is the law on copyright. So
that would be interesting to compare it with Lai presentation to see the similarities and differences, but we can do that later.
Okay.
Before
Okay, so I share a little bit. The type of work covered by copyright we consider is literary, artistic, and scientific works, and we consider the author and the copyright holder that have work covered by copyright, the contents of the limitation on and the term of protection of copyright, and related rights. We have some like moral rights in Article 19, economic rights, Article 20. The law also mentions the case of use of published works, Article 25 and 26, and the term of copyright protection in Article 27. The act of infringing open copyright is in Article 28. Besides the ethic in research, social science researches at all levels after acceptance are rarely published, such as literary, art, and music work. So it is difficult for scientific community and the society to control the plagiarism level in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some practices in Vietnam, according to Đỗ Bá, 2017, indicated that plagiarism is currently getting worse at Vietnamese colleges and university, where students often plagiarize from articles on the internet without single citation. The author used the text matching software Turnitin as a proxy measure of plagiarism, and the finding present the level of match higher than those in previous studies, with an average similarity index of 29.06%. Is it high?
It is.
Yeah.
It is too high. For sure.
Yeah, we know that. And other example of that in our country, I would like to share with you some practice in my university, as I'm a lecturer and researcher at Thủy Lợi University. The old name is Water Resources University, and now the new name is Thủy Lợi University. And we have the regulation on plagiarism for students in Thủy Lợi, in RMIT Vietnam, in Cần Thơ University, in Law University. They practice the regulation on plagiarism, and some other university, but I do not have enough time to searching for that. But for research projects at all levels, there has been no strict and specific regulation for this field. So, yeah, so when we do carrying out research projects, it's easy for you now in Vietnam. But in the future, I think it will be.
It's easy because there are no regulations, right?
Yes, I think so. Because we get some strugglings when we apply for ethics in other projects, working with outside, outside my country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's some practice in Thủy Lợi University. We already issued the provision on intellectual property activity in Water Resources University. We also regulation on intellectual property management in our university. About practices in RMIT Vietnam, as I'm doing PhD in RMIT, so we follow research integrity. Here you can find in our website, and research integrity is seriously considered in RMIT Vietnam, because we use the same regulation with RMIT Melbourne and in other branches. And at RMIT University, research is conducted according to the Singapore Statement and the Australia Code for Responsible Conduct of Research. when I send you slide, you can click on the link and you can see the statement and the responsible conduct research, the code from RMIT.
Okay.
Yeah. And for RMIT Vietnam, we define good research practice as part of the university ongoing development of research culture in Vietnam. And also at RMIT, we create the research cluster where the researchers in the same discipline can share their experience and connect it to each other to carrying out projects. You can see our cluster, research cluster, via this link. Some references we used for our presentation showing here. That is our main reading, key reading. Thank you for your attention. And now feel free to ask. We are from Vietnamese participants willing to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chang. There is already a question about sensitive cases. I think it's Putipong asking that. What can Vietnamese group give the example which kind of sensitive cases research are in Vietnam, and are there strict rules for ethical research in Vietnam? I think for the second question, your presentation answered well. I understood that rules are at institutions level more than at national level. But maybe you can confirm that. But would you have examples of sensitive cases of research, sensitive researchers in Vietnam?
Actually, working on some projects cannot be seen as a sensitive project. But in my opinion, the sensitive come from the research related to human, like in healthcare service, or in like some research we doing related to the health from people.
So related to health.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like we do some research in the hospitals, or sorry, I have a call.
Okay. Okay. And with other one of your colleagues maybe from Vietnam can talk about other sensitive cases.
Yes.
No. Bye.
Oh, please.
Mon. Phu. Lan.
Yeah, I have some experience, but when we are joining the research project about the human trafficking, and when we a lot of the people who are being the victim of the human trafficking, when we come back to Vietnam and we want to interview them, so it is kind of the way to, I think that is a sensitive research in Vietnam. So when we interview them, we have to hide every information about that case.
Human trafficking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I say?
And researchers about ethnic issues.
It is. We are research about the human trafficking in the ethnic group in in the borders of between Vietnam and China and Cambodia.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. Maybe I make a mistake with the questions.
I don't know. Other questions? If there are no questions, well, thank you very much, John, for your presentations, which was very well made. Please send it to me and Lai as well. And I'm very sorry about the time. I realize it's almost half an hour after the end of the plan of the webinar. Stefan, do you have something to add, or I can see your finger like that?
Well, there's a lot of things to say, especially for me about this country, Vietnam, because I'm working, make research, and I met a lot of people. I'm thinking about sensitive cases, but we have no time, and I think a lot of sensitive cases are around, for example, water management, the social management issues, forest, gender, and as it was mentioned about maybe health program in the countryside could be, and privatization of land also.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's some conflict between public and private aspect, or especially of land and in link with agriculture.
Okay. All right, guys, thank you very much for being patient and being here till the end. I thank you. Two more information before leaving. Some of you did not send me yet your objectives for the 3 weeks of work with your mentor. I remember you, it's very important. I remind you, it's very important because it will be the first step of work with your mentor, and we need to have a clear idea about what are your objectives. Otherwise, the support the mentor can give you won't be as efficient as it could. Remind you, I know it's kind of demanding, but there are still one more homework to do for tomorrow. I sent you yesterday night, I think. The homework for tomorrow is it's quite quick. Sincerely, you have 3 abstracts to read and just answer the 5 or 6 questions behind them. Please do it. It will help you tremendously tomorrow, where Sophie Belon, who is a specialist in the English language, tomorrow will be a bit different. Emma will present again, and Sophie will be there as well. And it would be the opportunity for you to really focus and concentrate on questions related to how to express yourself in English and how articulate ideas one to the other. And she will work particularly on the abstract, which we consider as something very important and very often neglected, unfortunately. So thank you very much to everybody, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully I will receive your emails with objectives with mentors today. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.